Hey everyone, and welcome back to EdgeBytes from the enterprise edge, where you will have signal over noise if we have anything to say about it. All right, so this week, IBM made two moves that, taken together, tell a much bigger story than either announcement alone. The first, an expanded collaboration with NVIDIA to accelerate enterprise AI adoption. The second, a new blueprint for quantum-centric supercomputing. I'm Mark Figueroa, founder and CEO of the Enterprise Edge, and today we'll quickly break down the significance of these moves by IBM and what customers, partners, and competitors should really take away from this. So on the surface, one of the announcements is about scaling AI today. The other is about preparing for a post-classical computing future. But when you connect them, you start to see IBM's actual strategies to control the full life cycle of enterprise intelligence, from current state AI execution to future state computational advantage. In its announcement with NVIDIA at NVIDIA's GTC conference in San Jose, California, IBM was explicit about the problem it is solving. Enterprises don't lack models anymore. They lack the infrastructure and the integration discipline to operationalize AI at scale. IBM states that its collaboration is focused on helping enterprises build, scale, and manage generative AI workloads across hybrid cloud environments, combining NVIDIA's accelerated computing with IBM's Watson X platform and consulting capabilities. That's a critical point. This is not a model story. It's a systems integration and operationalization story. And IBM's chairman and CEO, Arvind Krishna, reinforced all of that by saying, in the next wave of enterprise AI, the model layer will rely on the data, infrastructure, and orchestration layers, and on businesses that can bring all three of these together. That's positioning matters because it aligns directly with what CIOs are actually dealing with, which are fragmented data estates, regulatory pressure, and the need to embed AI into existing workflows, not rebuild everything from scratch. IBM is effectively saying, we will meet you where your data lives, not where the model vendors want it to live. So Nestle has gone on record validating this IBM NVIDIA pairing from a customer perspective. Chris Wright, who's the Chief Information and Digital Officer for Nestle, said, "For a company that serves billions, data underpins decision-making across our global operations. Working with IBM and NVIDIA, a targeted proof of concept has demonstrated the ability to refresh global operations data in a few minutes and at reduced costs." So now let's layer in the second announcement, IBM's blueprint for quantum-centric supercomputing. So here, IBM is not talking about incremental gains. It's really outlining an architectural shift where quantum and classical systems operate together as a unified compute fabric. IBM describes this as a path to systems that can solve problems beyond the limits of classical computing. And more importantly, it positions quantum not as a standalone breakthrough, but as an integrated extension of enterprise computing. So that distinction is really everything. It's because the history of enterprise tech adoption tells us that standalone breakthroughs usually stall and integrated architectures usually scale. IBM is betting that when quantum becomes commercially relevant, it will already be embedded into enterprise workflows, not sitting off to the side as like a research curiosity. So what do we learn when we put these two announcements together? I see a pattern emerging, and that is IBM is executing what you call time arbitrage strategy. In the short term, it monetizes enterprise AI adoption where budgets are already allocated. In the long term, it builds a differentiated compute layer that competitors cannot easily replicate. That combination is rare. Most vendors are doing one or the other. Hyperscalers are scaling AI infrastructure, but commoditizing differentiation. Startups are innovating at the model layer, but lack enterprise reach. Traditional enterprise vendors are embedding AI features, but not redefining compute. IBM is trying to do all three simultaneously. So what does that mean when you strip away any single industry lens and look at the broader enterprise landscape? It means IBM is positioning itself at a higher control point in the enterprise technology stack, one that sits above individual applications and below strategic outcomes. That's a pretty narrow band of real estate, and it's where the most durable economic and enterprise value tends to accrue. Most of the market is fragmenting along predictable lines. Hyperscalers like Microsoft, AWS, Google, they're all scaling AI infrastructure aggressively. Their advantage is distribution and developer ecosystems, but their challenge is neutrality. They are building horizontal platforms that must serve everyone, which limits how deeply they can optimize for specific enterprise contexts. Model providers are advancing rapidly as well, but their economics are increasingly tied to consumption. That creates volatility in cost structures and limited differentiation at the enterprise level. Application vendors are embedding AI features into workflows, but they are largely downstream of both infrastructure and models. So IBM is taking a different position. It is attempting to sit at the orchestration layer where infrastructure, models, governance, and enterprise data converge. That's where decisions get made. And more importantly, that's where decisions get monetized. So McKinsey continues to point out that the majority of enterprise AI value is realized not in isolated use cases, but in end-to-end process transformation, where multiple systems, data sources, and decision layers interact. IBM's positioning aligns directly with this. They're trying to be hybrid by default, open ecosystem rather than closed stack, consulting-led deployment to bridge execution gaps, and a forward-looking investment in compute architecture. So that combination is not accidental. It's structurally aligned to where enterprise friction and therefore enterprise spending actually exists. IBM's trajectory from here is less about vision and more about execution discipline. Three variables, I think, will determine whether this strategy translates into sustained advantage. First, platform coherence. If Watson X and Red Hat OpenShift and its AI tooling converge into a genuinely unified experience, IBM reduces friction at the exact point where most AI initiatives stall. Second, repeatability. IBM Global Consulting gives it reach, but long-term leverage comes from turning bespoke implementations into standardized deployable patterns that can scale across clients. And then third, timing on advanced compute. The quantum roadmap does not need to deliver immediate revenue, but it does need to show credible incremental progress tied to real-world problem classes. That maintains IBM's relevance in forward-looking enterprise architecture decisions. If IBM executes well across these dimensions, it strengthens its position not just as a vendor, but as a foundational layer in enterprise AI adoption. Okay, so let's close with practical implications for CEOs, CFOs, and CIOs. For CEOs, I'd say, reframe AI from a capability discussion to an operating model discussion like we've talked about before. The question is no longer, do we have AI, but where is AI embedded in how we run the business? Prioritize partners who can move from isolated use cases to enterprise-wide deployment without resetting your core systems. For CFOs, demand financial traceability. AI investments should map to measurable improvements in revenue velocity, cost structure, capital efficiency. According to McKinsey, companies that tie AI initiatives directly to P&L outcomes outperform peers in both margin expansion and growth. So structure investments accordingly and avoid open-ended consumption models without clear return pathways. Pretty logical. So for CIOs, design for interoperability and control. The next phase of enterprise AI will not be won by locking into a single vendor stack. It will be won by maintaining flexibility across models, environments, and data layers while enforcing governance. Hybrid architectures are not a compromise. They are becoming the default requirement. And across all roles, prioritize execution over experimentation at this point. The market is moving past proof of concept. Value is now determined by how quickly AI can be embedded into live operations, how reliably it performs, and how effectively it compounds over time. Well, that's all for now, folks. Thank you for being with us. Would love to hear your reactions, experiences, and other thoughts. Leave a like, a share, drop a comment, whatever you'd like, and we'll see you on the next episode of EdgeBytes. Take care, everybody.